What if I told you that the most powerful statement you could ever make in a relationship isn't spoken? It's silence. Imagine stepping back so completely that your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. Picture the people who took you for granted, suddenly questioning their own narratives, their comfort unraveling in the echoing void you leave behind. Intriguing, isn't it? We often feel stuck in roles we didn't sign up for, supporting characters in someone else's story. Are you the one who texts first, who gives more, who shows up every time without being truly seen? This dynamic drains your energy and leaves you feeling invisible. But what if the way to regain their attention, their respect, and their appreciation isn't by giving more, but by disappearing? This isn't about revenge or petty games. It's about reclaiming your power, your autonomy, and teaching others to value what they once took for granted. Stoicism teaches us the art of self-mastery, and here the ultimate test of that mastery lies in embracing absence. When you disappear, you create a space where your worth speaks for itself. By the end of this journey, you'll understand how absence sharpens love, forces reflection, and flips the dynamics of relationships in your favor. Most importantly, you'll see how stepping back can lead to mutual growth, respect, and a foundation for healthier connections. Stay with me, because the real transformation begins in the conclusion, where I'll share how these lessons can forever shift how you view relationships and yourself. But first, let's begin with the undeniable, gut-wrenching effect your silence has: the fear of loss. 1. The fear of loss, a catalyst for reflection. Fear has always been a powerful motivator, hasn't it? But what happens when the fear isn't external, like a threat or a danger, but internal? The fear of losing someone who mattered. When you choose to disappear, you force the other person to face this fear head-on. Think about it. Humans are creatures of attachment. We cling to what we know, often without appreciating it fully. We assume the morning texts, the reassuring words, and the constant presence of someone will always be there. But when that certainty is yanked away, it's like ripping the rug out from under them. The fear of loss sets in. This fear is more than missing your presence, it's the terror that you might never return. They may wonder, what if someone else has stepped into the space I once occupied? What if they've moved on without me? These questions play on loop, creating an emotional whirlwind that shakes even the most composed individuals. And as Stoicism reminds us, our fears are often magnified in our minds. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Their imagination runs wild, crafting worst-case scenarios that only deepen their sense of urgency to act. Loss aversion, a psychological principle, explains why this fear grips them so tightly. Humans value things more when they fear losing them. Your disappearance is a stark reminder that your presence was not guaranteed, that it was a gift they took for granted. Suddenly, they're faced with a gaping void where you used to be, and their need to fill it becomes overwhelming. But here's the most profound part. This fear is not just about their loss, it's about their failure. They start to question themselves. Did I push them away? Was I neglectful? Did I take them for granted? These reflections create a mirror they cannot ignore, a mirror that forces them to confront the role they played in your absence. This is the essence of Stoicism at work, confronting uncomfortable truths to grow. Yet you might wonder, what if they don't care enough to feel this fear? The answer lies in the strength of your presence before you left. Were you genuinely giving, supportive, and kind? If so, then your absence will hit hard because they will remember the foundation you provided. If they don't chase you back, it's not a reflection of your worth but of their inability to value what they had. And in that case, their loss is truly their own. As Epictetus wisely said, it's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters. Their reaction to your disappearance will reveal everything about their true feelings for you. Will they rise to the occasion, or will they let the silence linger? But here's the beauty of this strategy. It's not about manipulation. It's about clarity. Your absence gives them the space to reflect on the relationship and decide whether they want to make amends or let it fade. Either way, you reclaim your peace, knowing that your worth no longer hinges on their validation. This fear of loss creates a ripple effect, setting the stage for a deeper appreciation of who you are. And when we continue, we'll explore how this reflection leads to something even more profound, the awakening to appreciation. Stay tuned. 2. Awakening to appreciation. Absence sharpens value. Absence has a curious way of amplifying what was once overlooked, doesn't it? The Stoics understood this truth well. Seneca once wrote, "Absence sharpens love, presence strengthens it." When you choose to disappear, you are not just stepping back, you are shining a spotlight on all the things they failed to notice when you were there. I think about the little things you did daily. Were you the one who remembered their favorite coffee order, who stayed up late listening to their worries, or who offered unwavering support when life threw them curveballs? Perhaps these gestures seemed small to you, routine even, but their cumulative weight was what held their world steady. Now, in your absence, the void is undeniable. The coffee tastes a little more bitter without your morning texts. The victories feel a little less sweet without your congratulations. Even their struggles seem heavier without your comforting presence to lighten the load. They start to notice what was once invisible, your steady, quiet acts of care. This is the power of absence. It forces them to reevaluate how much of their daily happiness, stability, and even identity was tied to your presence. When you're gone, they realize that your contributions weren't just additions to their life, they were the foundation. But here's the deeper truth. This reflection doesn't just create longing, it creates appreciation. They begin to see how much you gave without asking for anything in return. Your absence forces them to face an uncomfortable question. Why did I take this for granted? The awakening to appreciation is not immediate. At first, they may brush it off, thinking you'll return soon, just as you always have. But as days turn into weeks, the realization dawns. They're really gone. And without them, my world is less vibrant, less balanced. This is when the shift happens. What was once assumed is now seen as rare and valuable. This newfound appreciation doesn't just inspire them to miss you, it pushes them to act. They begin to consider what they need to do to have you back in their life, not out of habit, but from a place of respect and gratitude. This is where the seeds of transformation are planted, both in their perception of you and in the dynamics of the relationship. But let's be clear, this is not about inflating your ego or making them grovel. Stoicism reminds us that our worth is not dependent on external validation. As Marcus Aurelius said, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. The goal here isn't their recognition, it's clarity. Clarity about who truly values you and who doesn't. By stepping back, you create the conditions for this clarity to emerge. If they come to appreciate your worth and make amends, the relationship may evolve into something stronger and more balanced. But if they don't, you still gain something priceless. The freedom to redirect your energy to those who truly see and value you. Now let me ask you, have you ever stepped away from a relationship and noticed how their behavior shifted? What small acts of yours do you think were most missed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this message is resonating with you, take a moment to give this video a like. Your support helps us reach others who may need this wisdom. Remember, the awakening to appreciation begins not with their actions, but with your decision to step back. Stay with me, because in the next section we'll explore how your absence doesn't just evoke longing or gratitude. It fundamentally shifts the balance of power in the relationship. And trust me, you won't want to miss how this reversal transforms everything. 3. The panic of silence. Creating a void. Silence is a powerful force. When you disappear from someone's life, the silence that follows isn't just the absence of noise, it's the loudest statement you can make. It disrupts their routine, creating a void that forces them to confront the reality of what you brought into their world. Humans are creatures of habit, aren't we? We thrive on patterns and predictability. The morning text, the evening call, or the casual reassurance that you're always just a message away becomes woven into the fabric of their daily life. And then suddenly you're gone. No texts, no calls, no presence. At first they might brush it off. Maybe they're busy, they tell themselves. they'll reach out soon. But as hours turn into days, a gnawing unease begins to take root. What's happened? Why the sudden silence? The absence becomes impossible to ignore. It's not just the lack of communication that unsettles them. It's the realization that they've lost the sense of certainty your presence provided. Epictetus once said, "Silence is often the loudest voice." In this case, your silence speaks volumes. It forces them to ask hard questions they may have avoided before. Why did they leave? Did I push them away? Could I have done more to keep them here? The space you create with your absence becomes a mirror, reflecting back the role they played in the relationship and their failure to appreciate you fully. But the panic isn't just emotional, it's deeply psychological. The sudden disruption of their routine triggers an internal alarm. The security they felt in having you always available has crumbled. Every unreturned message, every dark notification screen is a reminder of the gaping hole where you used to be. This panic grows as the days pass. They might check their phone obsessively, hoping for a sign that you're still there. They might replay past conversations, looking for clues about what went wrong. The silence forces them into a state of heightened awareness, a view of the relationship and of what they've lost. And this is where the transformation begins. The Stoics teach us that discomfort is often the gateway to growth. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Your absence pushes them out of their comfort zone and into a space of reflection. Perhaps they begin to see patterns they didn't notice before. Maybe they realize how much they depended on you to fill emotional gaps they didn't acknowledge. Or perhaps they confront the uncomfortable truth that they took your presence for granted. Whatever the case, the panic of silence serves as a catalyst for deeper introspection. But here's the critical part. Their panic is not your burden. Your silence is not a punishment or a ploy. It's an act of self-preservation. You've chosen to step back because the dynamics of the relationship were no longer serving you. Whether they use this panic as a turning point to grow or let it consume them is ultimately up to them. The Stoics remind us that we cannot control the actions or reactions of others, only our own. You've taken control by stepping away, reclaiming your time and energy. Their response to the silence, whether it's reaching out with newfound respect or fading away, reveals their priorities and their capacity for growth. And as their panic intensifies, it begins to morph into something else. A deep and undeniable appreciation for what you brought into their life. This sets the stage for a more profound shift, the reversal of power in the relationship. We'll explore this transformation in the next section. 4. Awakening to appreciation. Absence sharpens value. Absence has a unique way of reframing the familiar. When you were present, they might have seen your efforts, your kindness, and your constancy as given, a backdrop to their life. But when you disappear, what was once mundane takes on a striking new significance. Your absence becomes a lens through which they finally see your true value. Consider this. How many moments in your shared history were quietly shaped by your presence? The reassuring text before a stressful day, the inside joke that lightened a heavy moment, the silent understanding you offered when words failed. These weren't just acts of care. They were threads woven into the fabric of their everyday life. And when you pull those threads away, the tapestry begins to unravel. At first, they might not fully understand what's missing. They might feel an undefined discomfort or an emptiness they can't quite articulate. But soon the realization dawns. They begin to trace the contours of your absence, and with each recognition of what you brought into their life, the appreciation grows. This is the power of scarcity, a principle deeply embedded in human psychology. We tend to overlook what is abundant and accessible. Stoicism teaches us to value what is truly rare and significant, but it's only when something is lost or threatened that we often realize its worth. As Seneca wrote, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. The same applies to relationships. People waste opportunities to cherish someone while they're present, assuming there will always be more time. Now, in the space you've left behind, they begin to remember. They remember how you steadied them when life felt overwhelming, They recall the laughter you brought, the comfort you provided, the ease with which you navigated their complexities. Each memory sharpens their understanding of your worth, and the realization becomes bittersweet. They appreciated you too late. But this awakening is not just about longing, it's transformative. They don't just miss you, they begin to reassess their own role in the dynamic. Why didn't I notice how much they gave me? Why didn't I reciprocate more? Did I take them for granted? These questions force them into a state of accountability, a critical step toward growth. Here lies the beauty of your absence. It teaches them a lesson no words ever could. You didn't demand their appreciation, you allowed the silence to do the work. This aligns perfectly with the Stoic principle of leading by example rather than argument. Your absence becomes the loudest example of self-respect, a silent but powerful reminder that your value is not conditional on their recognition. And yet, this awakening doesn't guarantee they will act. Some people are unable or unwilling to confront the truth of their own behavior. They might sit with their regret but fail to change. That too is part of the process. As Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters. Their awakening to your value is their burden to carry, not yours. For those who do act, however, the change can be profound. They might reach out, not with empty apologies but with genuine appreciation and a willingness to rebuild. They might approach you with a new perspective, one that values your contributions and respects your boundaries. And if they do, you'll have the opportunity to decide, on your terms, whether they deserve a place in your life again. This awakening to appreciation is not just their lesson, it's yours too. It reminds you that you never needed to convince anyone of your worth. Your actions, your kindness, and your steady presence were always enough. By stepping back, you've allowed the truth to surface naturally. And as they awaken to your value, a shift begins in the dynamics of your relationship. No longer are you the constant giver, the one who bends and adjusts to maintain the connection. You've reclaimed your position as an equal or even as the one who sets the terms. This shift, this reversal of power, becomes the foundation for what happens next. We'll explore that in the upcoming section. 5. Reversing the power dynamics. In every relationship, whether we acknowledge it or not, there's a subtle balance of power. Who texts first? Who makes the plans? Who gives more emotional support? Over time, these dynamics settle into patterns. But what happens when you break that pattern? When you step away, something remarkable occurs, the power shifts. When you're always present, always available, the dynamic often leans toward the other person. They become accustomed to your consistent effort, taking for granted the stability and reassurance you provide. But when you disappear, you flip the script entirely. Suddenly, you're no longer the one seeking their attention or maintaining the connection. Instead, they're left with a question they can't ignore. Why did they leave? This disruption forces them to confront the reality that the connection they once controlled is no longer in their hands. It's unsettling, isn't it? The very presence they took for granted is now absent, and they realize they can't just snap their fingers and have you back. As Epictetus taught, no man is free who is not master of himself. By stepping away, you demonstrate mastery over your time, energy, and emotions, qualities that command recent admiration. This shift in power isn't about manipulation, it's about balance. Relationships thrive when both parties contribute equally and respect one another's boundaries. Your absence serves as a wake-up call, showing them that your presence was a privilege, not an obligation. If they want you back in their life, they'll need to make an effort, just as you once did. But let's dig deeper. What does this reversal reveal about them? Their reaction to your absence speaks volumes. If they begin to reach out, showing genuine interest and making an effort to reconnect, it's a sign they've recognized your value. On the other hand, if they retreat further into indifference, it may reveal that they were never willing to meet you halfway. Either way, you gain clarity, an essential principle in Stoicism. The beauty of this power shift lies in the fact that you no longer need to prove yourself. When they realize that you're no longer orbiting their world, they're forced to reassess how they interact with you. This can lead to a healthier dynamic where both parties engage with mutual respect and understanding. But here's the most empowering part. This shift isn't just about them. It's about you. By stepping back, you reclaim your autonomy. You remind yourself that your worth is not tied to anyone else's validation. This is a profound act of self-respect, one that aligns with Marcus Aurelius's wisdom. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. As the dynamics shift, they may begin to chase you, not out of desperation, but out of a renewed recognition of what you bring to the table. They may reach out, not with demands, but with curiosity and a desire to understand. They might even apologize or express gratitude for what you once gave so freely. And here's where the real transformation happens. When they chase, the dynamic becomes balanced once more. No longer are you the one carrying the weight of the connection. Instead, the relationship becomes a shared effort, built on respect rather than assumptions. Now, let me ask you, have you ever stepped back from a relationship and noticed how the other person's behavior changed? Did they begin to show you the respect they once withheld? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how reclaiming your power has impacted your relationships. And if this resonates with you, take a moment to like this video. Your support helps us reach others who may need to hear these insights. Remember, this isn't about control, it's about balance. In the next section, we'll explore how your independence, your autonomy, becomes the foundation for lasting respect and attraction. Stay with me, because this is where everything truly comes together. 6. Respect for your autonomy, the foundation of attraction. There is something undeniably powerful about autonomy. It is the quiet strength of someone who knows their worth, who chooses their path, and who doesn't rely on the validation of others to feel complete. When you disappear from someone's life, what you are truly demonstrating is your independence, your ability to stand alone. And this, perhaps more than anything, commands respect. When you step back, you assert a fundamental truth. I am enough on my own. This is not about pride or arrogance. It's about self-respect. It's about understanding, as Epictetus taught, that no man is free who is not master of himself. Your withdrawal is an act of mastery over your emotions, your time, and your energy. For someone who has grown accustomed to your constant presence, this autonomy can be both jarring and intriguing. Suddenly, you're not a predictable figure in their life. You're not the one waiting on their texts, initiating the calls, or making plans. You've removed yourself from the equation, and in doing so, you've shifted how they perceive you. Why is autonomy so attractive? Because it signals strength. It shows that you don't need them, you choose them. This distinction is crucial. Neediness often drives people away, but independence draws them in. When you demonstrate that you can thrive without them, they begin to see you in a new light, not as someone who fills a void, but as someone who adds value. This respect for your autonomy also forces them to confront their own behavior. Were they contributing to the relationship in a meaningful way, or were they taking your efforts for granted? Did they see you as an equal partner, or did they assume you'd always be there regardless of how they treated you? Your independence holds up a mirror to their actions, compelling them to reflect. And yet, this respect doesn't come solely from your absence. It comes from the life you continue to lead while you're away. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." When you step back, you don't retreat into misery or self-pity. Instead, you focus on your growth, your happiness, and your purpose. This quiet confidence speaks louder than any words ever could. As they observe your autonomy, they begin to understand that your life is full, even without them in it. This realization can ignite a sense of admiration and often a desire to reconnect. But this time, the dynamic is different. They don't approach you as someone who expects your presence. They approach you as someone who respects your boundaries. This shift lays the groundwork for a healthier connection. They recognize that you are not someone to be controlled or taken for granted. You are a person with your own goals, values, and identity, someone who chooses their relationships thoughtfully. And this respect for your autonomy often leads to a deeper, more genuine appreciation for who you are. But autonomy is not just about how they perceive you. It's about how you perceive yourself. By stepping away, you remind yourself that your happiness is not dependent on their approval. You rediscovered the strength that was always within you, the strength to live fully, whether they are part of your life or not. In their eyes, this independence may be what draws them back to you, but in yours, it's what sets you free. And when they return, it's not because you need them, but because you've chosen to let them in. A decision rooted in self-respect, not obligation. This newfound dynamic of mutual respect and understanding leads naturally into the next stage of this journey, the reversal of roles. When you embrace your autonomy, you're no longer the one chasing. Instead, they find themselves stepping into that role. We'll explore how this shift transforms relationships in the next section. 7. The role reversal. From pursuer to pursued. When you choose to step away, an extraordinary shift begins to unfold. The one who was once chased now becomes the one pursued. This reversal of roles isn't just about changing who texts first or who makes the plans. It's about a deeper transformation in the way they perceive you and the relationship itself. For so long, you may have been the one initiating, giving, and sustaining the connection. They grew comfortable with the rhythm you created, relying on your efforts to keep the bond intact. But when you stop, when you disappear, they are faced with a startling realization. The balance they depended on is gone. At first, they may feel confused. They wonder why the dynamic has shifted and what they might have done to cause it. But confusion quickly turns to recognition. They begin to understand that the responsibility for maintaining the relationship now rests on their shoulders. And in stepping into the role of pursuer, they gain a new perspective on what you brought to their life. Why is this reversal so significant? Because it forces them to confront the effort required to sustain a meaningful connection. They realize that the ease and comfort they once felt didn't come from nowhere. It was your care and consistency that created it. Now, with you stepping back, they must decide, am I willing to put in the same effort? This decision is transformative. If they choose to pursue you, it's not out of habit or convenience. It's because they've come to value what you bring and are willing to work for it. They begin to text first, to make plans, to show interest, all the things you once did for them. And in doing so, they start to see the relationship not as something they can take for granted, but as something worth nurturing. But this reversal doesn't just benefit them. It's a powerful experience for you as well. You are no longer the one bending and adjusting to maintain the connection. Instead, you stand firm, allowing them to meet you on equal ground. This is where true balance emerges, a dynamic where both parties contribute, appreciate, and respect each other's efforts. The Stoics understood the importance of balance in relationships. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." By stepping back, you've shown that your thoughts are rooted in self-respect and independence. And as they step forward to pursue you, their actions begin to reflect a deeper understanding of these principles. But what if they don't pursue you? What if they let the silence linger and fail to reach out? While it might feel like rejection, it's actually a gift of clarity. It shows you that they were never willing to invest in the relationship in the way you deserved. And with that knowledge, you're free to focus your energy on those who will. This role reversal is not about playing games or creating power struggles. It's about fostering a dynamic where both people feel valued and respected. It's about ensuring that the connection is built on mutual effort, not one-sided sacrifice. And if they do return, they come back with a renewed appreciation for you, not just for what you do, but for who you are. As this shift unfolds, something even deeper begins to happen. Their pursuit is no longer driven by fear or desperation. It becomes an act of respect, an acknowledgement of your autonomy, and a desire to rebuild the connection on healthier, more balanced terms. This reversal of roles doesn't just transform the relationship, it transforms you. It reinforces the idea that your worth is not tied to how much you give or how often you chase. Your worth is inherent, rooted in the strength and self-respect you've cultivated. And as they chase you back, the relationship evolves into something stronger, more balanced, and more aligned with the principles of Stoicism. But there's still one more shift to explore, one final transformation that changes not just how they see you, but how you see yourself. When you choose to disappear, you're not simply stepping back from a relationship, you're engaging in a powerful act of self-preservation, reflection, and transformation. It's not about punishing someone or manipulating their emotions. It's about reclaiming your worth, your autonomy, and creating space for clarity, both for yourself and for them. What have you learned through this journey? The Stoic teachings remind us that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. By stepping away, you've demonstrated that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's validation or approval. As Marcus Aurelius so wisely said, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. You've allowed your absence to speak louder than any words ever could. In the silence, they've come face to face with the void you left behind, forced to reflect on what you brought to their life. This process, though painful for them, has likely awakened a deeper appreciation and understanding of your value. But what about you? Through this experience, you've gained a new perspective on your own worth. You've shown yourself that you are capable of standing alone, thriving without needing to chase anyone's approval. You've taken control of what is within your power, your time, your energy, your emotions, and let go of what is not. For them, this journey has been one of realization. They've felt the panic of your silence, the discomfort of their own reflection, and the shift in power dynamics that your absence created. If they've chosen to chase you back, it's because they've come to understand that relationships are not a given. They require effort, balance, and respect. But the most significant question remains: what happens next? If they reach out, will you let them back into your life? And if so, how will the relationship change? The answer lies in the lessons both of you have learned. For them, this experience has likely taught them the importance of reciprocity, gratitude, and genuine effort. If they've truly internalized these lessons, their approach to the relationship will reflect it. For you, this journey has been a reminder that you set the standard for how you're treated. If they come back into your life, it should only be on terms that align with your newfound self-respect. Let them show, not just with words, but with actions, that they've changed and are willing to contribute to a balanced, meaningful connection. But what if they don't chase you back? What if they remain silent, unwilling or unable to reflect on their role in the relationship? That too is an answer. As Stoicism teaches, you cannot control their actions, only your response to them. And if they've shown you through their inaction that they're not capable of meeting you where you are, then you've gained something even greater: clarity. This process, whether it ends with reconciliation or closure, is ultimately about growth. You've learned to value yourself in a way that doesn't hinge on someone else's acknowledgement. You've rediscovered your strength, your autonomy, and your ability to thrive, whether they are part of your journey or not. So now I ask you, what will you do with this clarity? Will you choose to let them back into your life, or will you move forward on your own path? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this process has changed your perspective. If this journey has resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more insights and wisdom to those who need it. Share this with someone who might be struggling to find their worth. They deserve to hear this too. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of relationships, autonomy, and self-respect. Remember, your worth isn't determined by others. It's something you carry within you always. Wishing you strength, clarity, and peace on your journey ahead. Until next time.